When a strange and horrifying new creature escapes from the depths of the Phantom Zone, Superman will need to go on an odyssey like no other, in hopes of solving this problem. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Action Comics issue number 1070, the kickoff to the Mark Waid weekly era, and find out what happens next, shall we? So then, as we join the book, we check on in with the newly rebuilt Fortress of Solitude. If you'll recall, the old Fortress of Solitude blew up during the events of Absolute Power, and I guess they just rebuilt it while they were also building the brand new Watchtower. Geez, could you imagine being a general contractor in the DC universe? It's here we see a hairline crack begin to form in the original Phantom Zone projector. And before you can say David Cronenberg, a horrifying patchwork monstrosity begins to claw its way out of the projector and onto the main Earth. This thing is clearly some sort of ungodly amalgamation of Phantom Zone criminals, and it cries out in Kryptonian words that we as the reader can't quite understand. Now, back over in Metropolis, Superman goes to meet his best pal Jimmy Olsen, who is currently working a case on his own, getting some very incriminating pictures of white-collar criminals at work. Though in classic Jimmy fashion, he got himself on top of a streetlight with no actual plans on how to get down. Superman says that Jimmy should take care and be a little more careful, only for Jimmy to say, "And that's why you would never make it as a great journalist, Superman," which reminds me, oh yeah, I guess Jimmy wouldn't remember that Clark and Superman are the same person following the last retcon. It's just that he has been so close to the Kent family and Superman. It's easy to forget that fact, which is probably why Waid is going out of his way to remind people right here, right now. It's while taking Jimmy home, Superman ends up getting blindsided by that horrifying Cronenberg creature from before. It's also moving much faster than the human eye can actually perceive. And now that it's loose on Earth, it's also sucking down a bunch of yellow sun energy, greatly enhancing its already wild strength. Superman tries his best to keep this thing contained and try to cut down on any and all collateral damage. Luckily, he's aided by the coming of Supergirl. Not that that actually ends up helping all that much. This thing is horrifyingly erratic and has the strength of at least 3 power-mad Kryptonians all going on at once. There's actually a moment, too, where Jimmy says, "Hey, should we call in the reinforcements? Should we call in Steel or Connor or any of the other assorted members of the Superman family?" Only for Clark to say, "No, they would be slaughtered." Geez, we're just gonna do the rest of the Superman family dirty like that? I mean, it's alright, Mark Waid, if you didn't want to write about them, but seriously. That's just a major verbal pantsing right here in the middle of the fight, but I digress. Things eventually get so desperate, Superman figures the only way they're going to be able to defeat this monstrosity is if they make use of kryptonite. But not just any kryptonite will do either, and it's not like Superman can easily handle the green stuff. Instead, Superman decides to go for his secret stash of golden kryptonite, the stuff that when it's exposed to a Kryptonian, it completely removes all of their amazing abilities forever. As we learn, Superman has actually kept some of this stuff in his back pocket in a special lead container hidden away on the most toxic part of planet Earth. Of course, by the time he actually gets it back to the city, things have already gone from bad to worse. The Phantom Zone creature manages to knock Superman down before eventually threatening a whole bridge of innocent people. It's everything Superman and Supergirl can do to try and stop the bridge from collapsing. In the end, it's actually Jimmy Olsen who proves to be the real MVP in this situation, distracting the Kryptonian creature by making use of his special Superman signal watch. And once the monster has a bead on him, Jimmy even opens up the lead container and exposes the thing to the golden kryptonite, stealing away its powers, while also making sure that Clark and Kara aren't exposed to it either. The day might be saved, but now the real problem begins. What the hell is that thing, and how the hell did it manage to escape from the Phantom Zone? Superman ends up calling an entire meeting of the Super Family at the new Fortress of Solitude, so that they can brainstorm and compare notes. It's also here we're introduced to one hell of a deep-cut character, Dryger Molium of the Bottle City of Kandor. Apparently they're going to be sending the monster there to Kandor to get as much medical care as it possibly could, because, you know, no point sending this thing back to the Phantom Zone if it already escaped once before. Furthermore, Drygar is actually from, like, the Super Friends era of DC Comics, which I was not expecting when I cracked this book open. Now, Superman's next course of action is pretty obvious. If this monster came from the Phantom Zone, then the only way they're going to unravel this mystery is if Superman 2 goes to the Phantom Zone, which is never an easy proposition, as the Phantom Zone is filled with all of the most devious and deadly foes that Superman knew were too dangerous to ever let run around in the real world. To say nothing of the generations worth of Kryptonian criminals who have vowed a bloody vengeance on the House of El for Jor-El founding this place to begin with. In an interesting bit of characterization too, Superman admits that on top of being being a hero and doing everything else in his life, he never actually bothered to unravel much of the mystery surrounding the Phantom Zone, how his father found it, or even the morality of locking up dangerous criminals and life forms within it. Hell, as far as Superman can tell, the Phantom Zone only continues to grow and change and evolve and maybe even develop its own kind of savage culture. Also, if the Philip Kennedy Johnson stuff from the future is still canon, the Phantom Zone might also exist in the mind of a mad god, but I get the distinct feeling Waid isn't going to reference any of that. Now, as the comic comes to a close, Superman bids a teary goodbye to his wife and friends before eventually making the jump into the zone, only to realize too late that there is an entire ambush force waiting for him. And so that was Action Comics number 1070, everybody, and I gotta say, as a kickoff to the brand new weekly era of Action Comics under Mark Waid, this was a pretty damn solid start. We get some cool mystery hooks, a fun action scene for Superman and Supergirl wherein Clark actually gets to think tactically, and even a fun spotlight for Jimmy. Creatively, I also like this idea that Waid is running with, that yeah, let's actually investigate the Phantom Zone and really dig into what's going on there. It's something so quintessentially Superman, something we take for granted, but something that very few writers have actually really tried to dig into in any meaningful way for any amount of time. You also get a lot of comic bang for your buck when you pick up Action Comics number 1070, as there's also a pretty meaty Supergirl backup as well that involves her stealing a ship and wiping people's minds as part of some bigger mystery mission that I don't know if it'll eventually end up syncing back up with the rest of the story or if it is just a fun backup. Either way, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one another very positive 8 out of 10. And I'll definitely be excited to check out the next part of the story next week. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.